I want to give a shop tour and tell a story about converting this old dairy barn into my workspace. I wasn't making videos when I started working on it, which kind of bums me out because I've learned a ton and I wish I had documented it more. I started modeling the barn as it originally was just to learn SketchUp. And then once I had it fully modeled, I started thinking about ways I could change it and make it a more usable workspace. But once I had a finished model of what the barn could look like, I knew there was no way I couldn't start making steps towards it. The barn wasn't good for much else other than storage. Back in the day, the previous farmers that owned this place used to milk cows in here actually. There's a wood floor raised up about here, and the loft used to go all the way across, about 10 foot tall. So it's a pretty small enclosed space, and all it did was collect junk over the years. So to back up a little bit, when I was younger, I decided that as soon as I had a steady income, I was gonna buy a nice car. And after college, I did this. And as soon as I signed the papers on the car, I instantly regretted it. I just realized that it wasn't gonna make me happy like I thought I was going to. And it was gonna kill me making payments on it for a while, and there's just a lot better uses of my money at the time. So I sold it about a month later, and I decided to start converting this space into my workshop. And it was just one of the best decisions I ever made. I really learned a lot about myself and who I am and what makes me happy. The previous farmers that lived here, I think after the barn was built, actually raised it up and poured the concrete foundation. And they also put a new tin roof on the top of the barn. So the main structure of the barn was in pretty good shape, and it stayed dry and there wasn't much rot. I started by completely emptying the barn, which was a huge project in itself. Then I took apart the wood floor and the big timbers underneath supporting it. I took apart the floor of the loft up above, and for the first time the barn felt like a pretty good sized space. I'm probably gonna get some criticism for this, but this whole set of beams here that support the roof and then also support the loft, there's another set right in the middle of the barn, and I removed those so I could open up this whole space here. I was really nervous about doing it because it really changes the structure of the barn. I had a couple contractor friends come out and take a look, and they said, yeah, you can probably get away with it. So I just went for it. To help support the new span that's open up in the middle, I put in these 45s to take some of the weight. And then the big timbers I took out of the middle, I used to build the structure around the big barn doors there. The original floor joists for the loft were around logs that sat on top of the wooden beams. I took apart the whole loft area, even this part that I'm keeping over here, and rebuilt it using all these metal hangers, and I kept it within the wooden beams at the same height, so the floorboards go all the way across it. And then put the same loft floorboards back down on top of them. With everything open underneath now, I had some openings cut in the foundation for all the doorways, and then I hauled a bunch of gravel to raise up the floor of the barn. Then I had some concrete guys come and pour one continuous floor over the whole barn. I think the concrete is easily my biggest regret on the whole project. It's cracked a ton, it's got a rough finish to it, which really makes it hard to sweep up, and it scratches really easy too. Concrete's really expensive, and back then I just couldn't afford to pay the higher price to have a better floor poured. I mean, I couldn't afford to do it now even. I'm not quite sure what went wrong. I compacted the gravel like crazy, spent a ton of time doing it, and when they were backing the concrete truck in, the tires didn't sink into the gravel at all. They said they were really impressed how well it was compacted. So I'm not quite sure why it cracked so much. Maybe you guys have some ideas for me on what I could do to fill in the cracks. And I've also thought about maybe refinishing the concrete surface. Maybe paint it or stain it. I don't know. I just don't know much about concrete. If you guys have some ideas for me, I'd love to hear them. With the concrete floor poured, I started rebuilding the stairs going up into the loft. The stairs were originally in a different spot over on that side of the barn. I wanted to move them here so right when you walk in the door, you can either go up the loft or you can go into the barn. I wanted wide stairs that would give me some storage underneath for a bathroom and other things. And these are actually some of the old floorboards that I took down from the loft. When I was getting really crazy with the SketchUp model, I had the idea to have a walkway going up to a deck on the north end of the barn. I used to run a lot of track meets at Dempsey Indoor in Seattle. And on one end of the building, there's this staircase that kind of snakes its way up the side and up to a platform way up high. And I don't know why, but I used to always look at it and think it was so cool. And I just wanted to go up there for some reason. And I think I was kind of picturing that when I built this. When I'm showing people the barn for the first time, they pretty quickly ask where the staircase goes to. And the couple of kids I've had in the barn, they always instantly want to go exploring up the stairs and see where it goes to. So that felt like mission accomplished for me. I built the walkway and the stairs in 2 separate pieces up at our farm shop. And then I hauled them down here on the farm truck and ratcheted them into place with some straps and bolted them into the big beams of the barn structure. I extended out the loft with this overhang here to make it feel a little bit bigger up there, but not take up any room down underneath here. It also works out well because I could put some work lights in underneath, which lights up my welding table and my main area that I work. Built these 2 big barn doors on the front here. Wanted some big windows up top to let light in, and I put the doors on rollers too, so they'd be really easy to open. Been really happy with them. They've held up well. And then for the man doors, I was picturing kind of similar proportions as the big doors, but just scaled down. These again are some of the floorboards that I took out of the barn. For the handles, I actually bought a used lock set on Craigslist, and I just used the latch and the internal parts from it, and then I blacksmithed my own handles. My sister wanted to get married in the barn, which made me really proud. And for the wedding, I built the chandelier over the dance floor. But I didn't want the chandelier to be in the way when I'm working in the barn. So the chandelier has a cable that runs up to the peak of the barn, along the top of the barn, and back down to a big reel that I can reel up and lift the chandelier up into the rafters where it's out of the way. And then this is the deck up here. Come on. Which I know, it's an unfinished project, but I'm definitely gonna finish it one day. It weighs on me that I haven't gotten this thing done yet, but I'm definitely gonna get back to it. I'm gonna extend the roof out over the deck and tie into the big metal posts over there. So the idea with the deck was that with the hazelnuts going in here, our view out this way is gonna be blocked because they'll get up pretty tall. And so it'll be nice having the deck up here where you can still see out and have a beer at the end of the day. And then in this back area of the barn, I poured the footing and put up the wall and the garage door, which enclosed the barn for the first time and really made it feel like a self-contained and closed space. This used to be just an overhang that was open to the outdoors. So that's kind of the quick version of the many years I spent converting this old dairy barn into the space it is today. Next, I want to give a little shop tour and talk about how I have things laid out and how I work in this space. But before I do that, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Ritual. Ritual helps people fill the gaps in their diet. Man, I definitely don't have a perfect diet. I know I'm missing out on a lot of important things. I found that for me to stick to a healthy regimen, things have to be easy and they have to be convenient. And Ritual's both those things. The Essentials for Women vitamins that come in these easy to take capsules provide 9 nutrients, and the Essentials for Men provide 10 nutrients, like vitamin A, D, omega-3, and zinc, which are difficult to get from your diet alone. There are no fillers, no colorants, and no shady additives, so you know exactly what's going in your body. And you don't have to remember to restock your supply every time you're at the store because Ritual is shipped directly to your door every month for no additional cost. It's not something you have to think about. It just shows up on time and it's the exact amount you need. Fill in the gaps in your diet with Essential for Men and Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. I really like to have a nice minty smell to them so you don't get the fish oil breath afterwards. Ritual are offering 10% off your first 3 months by going to ritual.com/rainfall and using code RAINFALL at checkout. I want to thank Ritual for the support and I really hope you'll check them out. Fill in those gaps in your diet, people. So this is my main workspace here. Got my welding table with a nice 1-inch thick work surface on it with clamping slots cut into it. I didn't want to clutter it up with a bunch of storage underneath or attachments on it. I wanted to keep it nice and clean to work on. Only thing I have on here is my bench vise on the end, and I can pull that off pretty quickly and easily when I need to. I take a lot of crap for this plug right here. People are asking why I'd put a plug there, and probably rightfully so. I know it makes a lot more sense to have it back here, but the barn looked like this when I was trying to figure out where to put it, and I didn't have the welding table built either yet. So it was really just a guess on where it should go. It is really nice having some plugs in the floor though, so you don't have to walk across cords all the time. Just don't trip on this one. Keep my welders under here on the short part of the stairs. Got a MIG welder, TIG welder, and also a handheld plasma cutter that I don't use too often anymore now that I have the CNC table. Got my bolt bin, and this is my defense for the barn in case zombies attack. And this is Drake's bed. He sleeps right here when I'm working. I've got my oxyacetylene cart, and then in here, a bunch of grinders, batteries, other tools. And in the back of the barn is my CNC plasma cutting area. I have the CNC routing table as well, and originally I was thinking I'd put them side by side just because it looked cool having both tables right here set up. But then I started thinking about the dust from the CNC router and the sparks from the CNC plasma cutter in this wooden barn, and realized it probably wasn't the best idea. So I designated this just the CNC plasma cutting area. I put tin on all the walls thinking it'd be good for when you're throwing sparks with the grinder and welding and stuff. I'm always thinking about fires in the barn. It's something that's constantly on my mind. And then also in this back area I have quite a few different workstations set up. Got my old table saw right here. Got a couple drill presses, benchtop grinder, sandblasting station, my ring roller that I built, the air compressor, both the horizontal and a vertical bandsaw, and a sheet metal brake. This drill press is kind of a beast. It works good for drilling out big things, but I like having my small drill press set up for drilling smaller things or things in wood. And in this back area I have my pallet rack, which I just built, and has really helped a lot with storage. I had stuff stacked all against this wall, and all of it fits right now in this little area here, and it's a lot better organized. So yeah, I kind of think of this as my metalworking area. I guess I have a couple of woodworking things like the bandsaw and the table saw, but most stuff that I do back here is welding and grinding and metalworking stuff. And then my CNC router is set up in a small building outside the barn. This shed wasn't really getting used for much, so I designated it the CNC routing room. And that's basically all I use it for out here. I get a lot of questions about why I don't use dust extraction on the CNC router. And it's because I like watching the bit travel as it cuts and move around the table versus being hidden in a shroud. And also, since this is the only thing I'm doing in this room is CNC routing, I don't mind if it gets a little dusty and dirty. I'll just stop and sweep it up every now and then. So that's kind of a current snapshot of what my workspace looks like. Now that I'm building a lot of projects in the barn as a project itself has kind of slowed down a little bit, but there are still quite a few things I want to do to this space. A big one is build a workbench across this whole wall here. I want to have lots of drawers underneath for storage and then hang a lot of tools on the wall behind it as well. I think I'm going to make the work surface wood because on some projects it's really nice to have wood work surface versus doing everything on the metal welding table. And I think I want to set it at the same height as my metal welding table. I have a really big project I can span across onto the workbench over here. I plan to build a gantry crane in this corner of the barn on top of this metal piece that I welded together and I set in the ground when the concrete was being poured. I think it'll be a big investment into my back health. We have a shop hoist in our farm shop and we use it all the time. And that one's stuck in a straight line. So I think a jib crane will be really handy where you can swing it and cover the whole area out here. I want to keep insulating the walls And I bought a diesel furnace here that I want to install outside the barn, and then have some ducting run through the rafters and the ceiling over there to blow a little bit of heat down. You don't need much heat in a shop, I think. Once you get working, you don't want it too hot, but just a little something to take the edge off on those really cold days. And I'm gonna build a bathroom in this area here. I have it plumbed for a toilet on this side, and then a big basin wash sink on the other side, which I think would be really handy. And then lastly, I just want to continually work on organization. I can spend way too much time looking for things out here, and I just want to build a bunch of drawers, get everything marked, and have places for everything, which I know will be huge for my productivity out here. I love working on projects out here in the barn. I think it's one of my favorite places to be. It's one of the best decisions I ever made in my life to sell the car and put the money into this barn, because I know I wouldn't care about the car today, but the barn and this space is something I'll have for the rest of my life, hopefully. If there are any questions, put them down below. I'd be happy to answer a bunch. I know I'm not always the best at responding to comments, but I'll answer a bunch if there are any. So thanks for watching, guys.